Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis Sandstrom. I'm with the HDR team, and I'll be facilitating tonight's presentation to you. We have a lot of great things we want to cover tonight. I'll get into that in a moment here. Before I do, I wanted to just cover some housekeeping items. So as we go through our presentation tonight, we definitely want to hear from you. As much as we're sharing, we want to hear from you too. There's a function at the bottom of your Zoom window that's Q&A. We're really encouraging people to use that as an opportunity to share your questions with us. We might answer those as we go through the presentation, but what we'll really do is try to hold on to all of that for the end of the meeting tonight. We have about an hour here. So we'll save a good chunk at the end to get to those questions and try to answer, if not all of them, as many as we can. So some of you may have questions even before you've seen what we have to share, and that's great. You should put your questions in that Q&A area, and we'll make sure we get a chance to answer that. So again, there's some simple instructions on the screen there to see how you find that Q&A button and send us your questions. If you are having any technical issues for whatever reason, like you're not seeing something or audio is not working exactly, please reach out to Cami. She is in the chat there. You should be able to find her as a host panelist. And she can try to work with you on the side to resolve any technical issues and anything else that you might have. So don't be afraid to find that in case you need to. We just want to make sure that you have that opportunity to hear everything that we want to share with you tonight. So speaking of, here's our agenda for the hour that we have with you tonight. We want to make sure we cover some, I want to do some introductions of the project team. Then we'll have an opportunity to hear and share a little bit more about what the Public Works Department is, and then more about what we're doing here with the South County Transfer Station Study. And then we'll have that, like I said before, opportunity to answer any questions that you might have at the very end of the meeting. So with that, I'm going to move on here to some welcomes and introductions. And Jeff, who is our project manager, do you want to start here with some opening remarks and introductions?
Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, first off, I'm Jeff Bickford. I'm the solid waste manager for Thurston County Public Works. And I'd like to thank you all for attending our virtual open house tonight. So we hope that you find this informative and that we can answer your questions about the process that we're looking at here at potentially siting or developing a new South Thurston County transfer station. Then ultimately, after the end of this, we hope that after this open house is over, that you'll get online and take a survey that we've put out there. They'll give you the opportunity to give us additional feedback on what you would like to see at a potentially facility, where you think that would be best, what type of services that you would like to have. So hopefully you'll participate in that as well. And now I'd like to introduce the team that we have here tonight to do in this presentation. So I'm going to start. Okay, I already introduced myself, but we have online April Lee, who is our education and outreach supervisor. And we also have Amanda Romero, who is our solid waste planner. Both of these are in the Public Works Department as well. Our consultant that's helping to put this study together and performing a lot of the work here is HDR and Wendy Mifflin. I'm going to give it to Wendy and have her introduce the rest of her crew.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is Wendy Mifflin, and I'm a project manager with HDR working with the county. And with me tonight, we have Dennis Sandstrom, who will be the MC of our program. And we also have Cameron Shigaya, who is behind the scenes running our operations for us tonight. So thank you all for participating.
Great, Jeff. And so I think it's going to be back to you to do a quick overview about Public Works.
It is. Next slide, please. So let me give you just an idea of what Public Works does here at the Thurston County. So it encompasses a number of different functions that are primary. It really, hold the community together. So the part that we're talking about tonight, of course, is the garbage and recycling, the solid waste piece that's covered by the solid waste division. Additionally, Public Works has an engineering group, and it really is particularly focused on roads and traffic and those sorts of issues. Additionally, in Public Works, parks and trails is a key piece, as many of you probably enjoyed those around the community. There's the road operations group, which is more of the out in the field, actually doing the work, such as repaving and that sort of thing, doing maintenance and roadside cleanup, vegetation, etc. And additionally, we have a water resources group that deals with stormwater management, manages some of the lakes in the community, as well as noxious weeds and invasive species. So as an overall department, our mission is to provide quality public services in all of these areas of our business. It's the ones I just mentioned above. And basically our core values of what we try to accomplish is to be accountable, provide the best public service that we possibly can, be innovative, of course, be working safe for ourselves as well as out in the community, and perform teamwork, not just among public works staff, but other county departments, other agencies, and the public as well. So basically trying to work cooperatively with the whole community. Next slide, please. As far as the solid waste division and the garbage and recycling services, some of the things that we do oversee is recycling programs that are out there in the community, whether it's promoting them or whether it's actually having those available at our solid waste sites, managing the garbage that's brought to the disposal sites, of which we have 3, and I know Wendy will talk more about those shortly. I do want to make up a certain point that Thurston County is not responsible for the curbside collection of waste. That's actually done by either a private company, Waste Connections, or by the city of Olympia if you live in that jurisdiction. So we're on the end of managing it after it's been collected. Additionally, other programs we work with are food and yard waste collection, for that ultimately goes to a composting facility. Household hazardous waste at our Waste and Recovery Center in Lacey, our primary disposal site. We have a facility called Hazo House that's open 7 days a week for accepting household hazardous waste, chemicals, and that sort of thing from homeowners, as well as from small businesses. Of course, small businesses pay a fee for homeowners at free at a no cost item. Additionally, we put a considerable effort in education and outreach out in the community to educate people about the waste disposal, recycling, and waste reduction programs, things such as our Master Recycler Composter education program. It's very extensive, and hopefully I know we sent out an all county flyer recently that had information about recycling. So we put a lot of resources out to educate people on the best ways to manage their materials. And lastly, Thurston County maintains a solid waste advisory committee, which is a combination. It's a citizen advisory group that considers solid waste issues, makes recommendations ultimately to the Board of County Commissioners. And that committee meets once a month, and it is staffed by city representatives, solid waste industry representatives, as well as residents from the county. So it's a kind of a diverse group of individuals that considers various solid waste issues. Again, if you're interested in that committee, there occasionally are vacancies in it. So you can see that on our website if there are any current vacancies, and if you're interested, you can apply. So that's kind of what the solid waste division does in a very brief nutshell, but we're really here today to talk about a concept of potentially looking at a new South County transfer station. And I'm going to pass it to Wendy to get more involved and kind of describe what we're looking at.
Thank you, Jeff. Next slide, please. So as you can see from the map on this slide, the county owns 3 solid waste facilities. The Waste and Recovery Center, which I'll refer to as the WARC, is located on Hogan Bay Road in Lacey. And then the Rainier drop box site, which is located on Rainier Acres Road Southeast in Rainier. And the Rochester drop box site, which is located on Sargent Road Southwest in Rochester. The WARC, which operates as the main transfer station for the county, accepts municipal solid waste from both municipal, commercial, and self-haul public customers. The Rainier and Rochester drop box sites operate a little differently in that they accept municipal solid waste only from self-haul customers. So garbage that's collected at the curb doesn't come into those two sites. Municipal solid waste is currently deposited into 40-yard cubic containers and then transferred to the WARC building up in Lacey for compaction into shipping containers for transport to the regional landfill under some contractual obligations that the county has for operations. And so these two Dropbox sites offer a separate designated area for drop-off recyclable materials and also collection containers for used oil and used vehicle batteries that are also available on site. So as municipal solid waste comes into the Rainier and Rochester sites and is loaded into those containers, they are hauled up to the WARC, which is a pretty long haul to get up there, compacted, and then hauled back south through Lewis County to get on a train to go to the regional landfill in just outside of Goldendale. So there's a lot of hauling that goes on from these sites to get garbage compacted and disposed. Both the Rainier and the Rochester Dropbox sites are operating currently above their design capacity. And if you've ever utilized those sites, you're noticing that there are extended wait times and limited disposal and recycling opportunities available. The county population is continuing to grow, and the county needs a solution that can accommodate the solid waste and recyclable materials that your communities generate. So with these items in mind, the county is evaluating the possibility of building a new transfer station in the southern portion of the county. And through the engagement process that we're currently utilizing, we're inviting community members to help shape this planning process to meet countywide needs for solid waste and recyclable handling into the future. So it's a pretty exciting process for the county to undertake. And so we're happy to be here tonight. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about the county solid waste management plan. Each county in Washington state is required by regulatory requirements to complete a solid waste and hazardous waste management plan. And the Thurston County Solid Waste Management Plan was completed in 2021. That plan has a mission statement that is basically to provide citizens with efficient, reliable, and affordable solid waste collection, handling, recycling, and disposal services in order to improve the quality of life while protecting and preserving human health, environmental quality, and natural resources. So that's a lot of words to have as your plan goal. In support of that mission statement, the Solid Waste Management Plan also sets goals for its infrastructure and system. And those include managing waste in a cost-effective manner that promotes waste reduction, reuse, and recycling, enhance and improve overall efficiency of waste and recycling collectibles for collection and transfer, and then to build infrastructure needed to provide maximum recycling and waste diversion opportunities within the county. The plan also has a mission statement that considers environmental impacts to climate, air, water, and land that are associated with waste generation, transportation, handling, recycling, and disposal. So with that, you will see what the Solid Waste Management Plan recommends for the Rainier Dropbox site, the Rochester Dropbox site, and the WARC. And that is that from the county capital facility plan as appropriate, the county wants to ensure high quality service delivery in a fiscally responsible manner. And so also the plan recommends that the county evaluate the development of a transfer station facility on a greenfield site, which means an open site moving forward. So next slide, please. So we have quite a few goals for the study that we're working on. The first one is we really want community input. community input is going to be key to providing the feedback to the county for the facility needs, material handling, and all the options that can be incorporated into a facility. So we're relying on all of you as participants to provide feedback. We also want to foster community ownership of the project. And to do that, we're looking at some equitable and inclusive and accessible opportunities for comment. And I'll talk about those in a little bit in another slide coming up. We're also inviting all community members to get involved early and often in the process. Again, we're really interested in hearing what you have to say. And then the county has gone out of their way to provide information in multiple languages. And so you'll see that through the website and through all of the documents that have been going out. And lastly, listening to people's experiences and needs. And I'll talk about that a little bit later when I talk about the intercept surveys that we did at the sites. So another one of our goals, of course, is to meet the county's needs for solid waste management into the future. And also now, because if you're utilizing those sites, you're seeing that there are some issues with traffic management and safety on the sites. So we certainly want to look at that. And then as we discussed, we want to comply with the Thurston County Solid Waste Management Plan and also the county's flow control ordinance. And that flow control ordinance requires all garbage that is generated in the county to come through the county facilities, particularly curbside collection of garbage. So with that, those are the goals for the study. Next slide, please. We're really looking for community input to shape this study. And so we're out not only tonight, but we've also been out at Rainier and Rochester, and we have a survey online. And we're asking you about, what do you currently use our Dropbox sites for? What travel distance are you willing to travel to dispose of your municipal solid waste or your recyclables? And what additional service needs would you like to see? Do you want more recycling options? Do you want organics options? You know, do you want tire disposal options? Household hazardous waste? I mean, there's tons of services that the county could offer at these facilities. And so we're really hoping to engage the community and get feedback on that. Some of the engagement methods that we're using is we went out and we had 2 HDR employees collecting intercept surveys at the Dropbox sites on July 15th and 16th. So if you were out at the sites, you would have seen our HDR employees out there taking surveys. And we did over 150 surveys in 2 days at the site. So it was very successful. If any of you participated, we really thank you for participating out on the sites. We are also doing briefings with stakeholder groups. So we have not only met with the curbside collection company, which is Waste Collect Connections, we have also met with Republic Services, who is the operating contractor of record for the county sites. And we are also having a meeting with Lewis County to get feedback from them as to what they would like to see, since the southern part of the county is fairly close to some solid waste facilities in Lewis County. The county also has a solid waste advisory committee that Jeff spoke about. And so we have been giving briefings to them on the project all along. And then of course, we have the virtual meeting that we're holding today. And so we're happy to see all of you here. And also you can participate through an online survey. And I think that if you're probably on here, you've probably already participated in the online survey. But to date, we have over 150 surveys that have been turned in on the online survey. So we're just really excited about the community participation on this project. Next slide, please. So our next steps, we are going to summarize all the input that we received through our engagement methods. We will share that with the County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. We will also share it with the Board of County Commissioners when we get the project completed. And it will also be shared with the community to keep the community informed. In addition, the county will need to determine the next steps moving forward, what kind of site alternative analysis they're going to look at, what kind of site design they might look at moving forward. So this will be a little bit longer process, but I think keeping the community informed and getting feedback is probably our most important step as we move forward. So with that, I think I'm turning it back to you, Dennis.
Yeah, well, you get to hang around a little bit because we're also going to answer some questions. And so that's the presentation, the information we wanted to share with you tonight. And so I've seen questions come through, and I really appreciate everyone sending those through. So Wendy, I'll just ask you some of these questions, and if we need to kick them around to others on the call, great. In the meantime, too, if Cami, if you have a moment, or maybe April, to put a link to the survey in the chat, we'll get that to you too. So in case you haven't taken that online survey, we'd love for you to be 151 of that, so that we can always looking for more and more input, and have your thoughts there too. But let's jump to questions. So I think one of the first questions that pops up here is the question about what's the difference between what's there today called a drop-box site and then a transfer station.
So if you've utilized the sites, the drop-box sites are open air sites where as you come into the gate, you back up to an open transportation box, I'll call it, and people offload over a railing into a box. And then that container is hauled to the Waste and Recovery Center. Once it gets up there, then that material is compacted, goes back into a larger vehicle, and is hauled south through Lewis County and gets on a train to go to the landfill. The difference with what the county is looking at now is building a transfer station facility, which would have a 3-side enclosed building that customers would access to dump their solid waste onto a flat floor. So you wouldn't be dumping over a railing or into a box, you would be dumping on a flat floor. And then that material would be loaded directly into a container and hauled to the rail yard. So it would no longer be hauled up to the wharf for additional compaction. So saving quite a bit of not only fuel, but greenhouse gas issues. So hopefully, and then in addition to that, there could be some other services offered on site. So currently the Dropbox sites only offer recycling services for what I would consider your main recycling: cardboard, paper, aluminum, plastics, those kind of things. A transfer station can also offer facilities to accept limited household hazardous waste, can also offer facilities to segregate organics such as yard waste or potentially food waste for composting. You currently don't have that option in the South County. And there could be some other options. Textile recycling could potentially be offered down there, which is currently offered at the WARC. So there are a number of additional options that could be offered as part of this project.
So you mentioned the process of trucking down through Lewis County. So there is a question about why does the solid waste from the Lacey facility have to be trucked through Lewis County to Goldendale? Is there a reason, or it just happens? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the closest rail line is in Centralia. And so material has to come out of the WARC, which the majority of the municipal solid waste collected goes into the WARC, just based on population and the cities that utilize that site. So currently the material gets compacted, goes into a a trailer and then is hauled to the Centralia rail yard and goes on the rail. The county's disposal site is the Roosevelt Regional Landfill that's in Eastern Washington outside of Goldendale. And that's a very large regional landfill. A number of counties in the state utilize that landfill for disposal. So the county does not have an in-county landfill anymore.
Got it. Okay. I'm trying to group some of the questions I have just off screen here. There's one about, so once, if the county moves forward with this, there's a two-part question here. A, do we know of any potential sites at this point where that site could be? And then the second question being, what would happen to the existing sites, Rainier, Rochester, based on where this new facility could be?
So Jeff, do you want me to answer that or do you want to answer that?
No, go ahead. I think you know the answer.
Okay. So the county currently owns the two sites, the Rainier and Rochester sites. They did a preliminary study over a year ago looking at potential sites and options, and then chose to put the project on hold so that they could get community feedback. A site has not been chosen yet, and so not sure where the site will be in the end, but the Rainier site is a potential, the Rochester site is probably a potential. I think one of the things that the county is looking at is this site will also offer the transfer station facility for the curbside collection of garbage to bring in for disposal. So currently everybody that puts your can out at the curb, that material goes to the wharf for disposal, which is a pretty long haul from southern Thurston County. The county is looking at the possibility of sizing a facility in order to collect and take that curbside waste, hopefully to not only help with the greenhouse gas emissions, but save on costs for Waste Connections hauling directly to the wharf. So back to your question, a site has not been chosen yet. We think it's really of the utmost importance to get community feedback before the county looks any further at sites. And so based on the feedback, the county will decide how they're going to move forward and then potentially look for a site.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Because there was another question, but I think you answered this in your answer, but already, but is the current Rochester site not a good one for future use?
So the current Rochester site is so far to the west, and it is across I-5. And the major waste stream that comes into the sites, and especially from the curbside haulers, would be coming from the Rainier, Tenino, Bucota, Yelm area. And so while it's not off the table, it would probably not be the first choice just because of the haul distance for disposal of garbage from those municipalities.
Great. So there's a few questions in here about recycling. And so there apparently is some interest there, which is great. The first question is, will the new transfer station include recycling of larger pieces? It says Midway is apparently closed. So I'm thinking they're beyond what currently exists. Will there be able to recycle bigger pieces?
So that's an excellent question. It's also one of the items that the county is looking at. They would really like to be able to take white goods, appliances, and maybe some metals at the site in order to recycle those. So yes, if you're responding to the survey, make sure and put it on the survey that you would like to see metals and white goods recycled, because the county would really like to consider that as an option.
Great. There was a question, I think general questions about what can be recycled. And, there's a note here that, we have if you go to the garbage and recycling website, there is a, where do I take my wizard that you can use. And I played around with it. It's kind of a really cool feature. So if you're looking for, answers for what you currently can recycle and such, that's a great tool. So definitely look out for that. I think you mentioned this one already about yard waste being a potential for the new transfer station. Is that true?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm getting through most of the questions. It's not too late. We have plenty of time. We can always end early, but if folks have questions, we want to hear them. And we can definitely get to them tonight before we go. This one might be a bit of a repeat, but it just came in. Will we be reclosing the Rochester site? Or I guess even the Rainier site with the new transfer station, if it is put in place?
I think the answer to that is the county probably does not know where the site will be located yet. But I think you could expect, if the site is not at Rainier or Rochester, that both of those sites will be closed, and there will be a single site with a transfer station for use.
Okay. I'm glad I asked for more questions because they're rolling in and I have them up. So we'll just go with it. Do we have a current timeline for both the study and when or if a new transfer station would be ready for public use?
So our public input during this process will end about the middle of August. And then HDR will prepare a report for the county to review. They'll go through an internal review process and make decisions as to how they want to move forward. A lot goes into establishing a site and building a transfer station. So, they potentially might have to acquire a site. They would have to go through design. They would have to go through permitting. They would have to go through the SEPA, the state environmental process for permitting a site. So I think you could probably expect 24 to 36 months in order to get the facility up and operational.
Okay. They put 2 years, 3 years. So, I mean, I think
so
they were
pretty good. Whoever asked that question, they did
good. So another one about where it could be potentially located. How important is it that it needs to be near rail line?
It is not important that it is near rail, because the contract that the county has that starts in May of 2023, it will be getting on the rail at Centralia through that contract. But what is important to the contractual operator of the sites is how close to the I-5 corridor the facility is, because the closer you get to the I-5 for easy access to the rail yard, the faster they can make a turnaround and process the solid waste through the facility. So we'll want to be on main roads down there, moving forward with the project as we look at it.
Got it. Great. There is a question here about potential spot. Is there any consideration given to the Maytown area for this new site?
To where?
Maytown.
Okay, Jeff, you need to help me with that because I'm not sure where that is.
Yeah, it was thought that we put out a broad enough net just yet. We haven't really honed in on any particular place yet. But again, as Wendy just mentioned, the key is going to be good transportation routes for trucking. So ones that are going to be reasonably quick and that can handle larger trucks. So we'll be our minds are open as we could look into it. If we decide to move forward, it's like a deciding process. Our minds are open. So
yeah, someone has an idea about rail spur being part of this. Can that be part of where the siting location could be a good idea?
So the county looked at some of that a year ago when they were looking at sites. And so there are only specific railroads that go to specific landfills. And so the landfill that the county is going to in Eastern Washington only has one rail line that goes into it. So it's something that the county looked at early on, but is probably not an option for the sites moving forward.
Okay. So there's a couple more questions about recycling and food waste. One is, and I don't know if we know this, how much of what is put in the drop boxes actually recycled?
So interesting that they should ask that question. So the county is currently doing a waste characterization study countywide. And so they are conducting waste audits 4 times over the next about 8-month period here. And looking at exactly that, wanting to see how much organics is coming out of Rainier and Rochester. So we're sorting down, into food waste, all kinds of categories. So the county is going to have some pretty good information on that, probably middle part of February or March next year.
Great. Okay. I think that answers another question about, is all the yard and food waste currently being composted at the wharf, all recycled, reused, so that it's not building up?
Yes. So everything that is going into the work and is segregated into the compost area there is going for composting. So food waste that's collected curbside is going in there. I should say that if a load comes in highly contaminated, and sometimes curbside loads do, that does get disposed of, but the majority of the materials coming into the wharf are going through the organics area and going for composting.
Okay. There's been a couple questions about just staying informed with this process, and I'm gonna share a slide very soon about contact information. I think April is willing to put the contact information in the chat for you all too. So if you have questions that we didn't get to tonight, or you have, you go home and you're like, oh yeah, or later tonight something trickles up and you want to ask a question, you can always ask. So reach out to us and we'll make sure we get that. I'm thumbing through the questions that I see. Let me double check. Here's a new one. Is it possible to ever add used wooden pallets to the recycling bin?
Yes, that is possible. So a market has to be developed for that material. And so a lot of times pallets are chipped or shredded and then they're sent to the paper mills. So yes, it is possible to do that. And if you have an interest in that, make sure and put it on your survey.
Perfect. Love the plugs. So there was just a confirmation, or I guess it's just that the county currently owns the Rainier and Rochester sites.
Yes.
Okay, and it's the Public Works that own, or we're going to be handling this issue as we go forward. Jeff's group, or part of Jeff's group. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think I've gotten through all of them. We've gotten through all of them, Wendy. So again, I appreciate everyone's questions and answers. I wanted, before we get to the end of the hour, again, we're not closing off a spigot. If you still want to ask some questions, feel free to reach out to us with the contact information that April put in the chat, phone number, email, all those things. We definitely want to keep hearing from you, and appreciate you taking the time even to be here tonight and ask those questions. Hopefully you found it helpful. We mentioned the survey a couple of times, and there's more on our project or study page, if you will. So on the screen now, you can see the link to that. I think Cammie's been putting those links in the chat as well, so you can just click out to those. If you're on the phone, if you go to www.thurstoncountywa.gov, and then you can do /recycling. That would be the place to get to the information we're looking for the fastest. And there's a link there on that page to the study. as well as once you click through there, you'll see links to both the survey and other information. So I think as was mentioned in the chat too, we are recording this. We plan to put a copy or whatever of the video up on that website, as well as some of the meeting materials. So plenty of opportunities to take a look at what we shared so far tonight, and we can get to that. But I think that takes us to the end. Jeff, do you have any final words that you'd like to share?
Certainly. First off, thank you again for listening to the presentation and attending tonight, and for your questions. And hopefully we answered them. And again, if you have questions, there's contact information. If you think of some after we're done here, there's contact information right there. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we're really hoping that if you haven't already, that you get online and take that survey there at thurstoncountywa.gov/recycling. That will get you to a link to get there. Again, that we found that very valuable. It'll, to hear what you have to say and what you would like to see and where you might like to see it and what types of programs you might want to have. So again, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here.